Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy. This right here is the Leatherman Juice CS4. And I want to thank my buddy Jim for sending this little guy along. It's an interesting little tool, and I wouldn't have gotten a chance to handle one otherwise. So thanks, Jim. Also, some size comparisons real quick. This right here is the Leatherman Squirt P4. And we'll do the closed size comparison as well. So you can see this is a substantially smaller tool. Right here is the Leatherman Charge TTI. So the juice here is, well, much smaller. And then similarly, the Leatherman Wave, which is, again, a larger tool here. And we'll pop these guys open to continue the size comparison. So anyways, this is the Leatherman Juice line. It's a very interesting sort of thing. It's built in many ways like the Squirt. You can see the construction is pinned. I mean, this is in some ways a mega Squirt, which is a juice. I don't know about that, but whatever it is, there you go. That's how this guy is working. So before we get into any more liquid metaphors, let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this particular pocket tool. So first off, on the good side, this does have a nice complement of tools. In addition to pliers with a little wire cutter in the middle there, on the outside here, you've got yourself a full wine opener, complete with the little assisty lever. I'm sure there's a fancy term that fancy people know, but I don't. So there it is, the little lever. Right here, you've got yourself a pair of scissors that are actually pretty reasonable, all told. You've got yourself a little knife, sort of an arrangement, and an interesting blade shape, too. Sort of a Warncliffe with a little bit of a lift off at the end, whatever. And then on the other side here, you've got yourself an awl, as well as a little tiny saw, which is vaguely adorable and also vaguely strange. So there you go. And then on the inside, you've got yourself a smaller selection of tools. And actually, I'm going to use this little guy to get to those tools. We'll talk about that in a little while here. But here you got yourself a little flathead sort of bit, which is a good thing. Here you've got yourself a very, very useful little tool, this little scraper sort of affair. This is a precision tiny screwdriver, but this right here is, in my experience, one of the most useful things a multi-tool can have. A relatively small little metal thing that you can use to scrape, that you can use to clean out gaps, that you can use for a whole bunch of different things. And then a slightly larger sort of scraper-gapper thing, also known as a flathead screwdriver, for those of you outside the business. And then on this side, can I get it? No, I cannot. Use my Leatherman to get to my Leatherman here. We've got ourselves a Phillips head driver, and note that it is a complete Phillips head driver. It's not just a horizontal, imitation of one. So that's nice, as well as your keychain wrapped around the outside here. So that's a nice little complement of tools, and the full Phillips head, as well as that small little flathead sort of affair, is a really beautiful thing. Those are very useful tools to have, more so than a lot of other ones. One other thing I gotta say on the good side is I am a fan of the nested tool approach. So having, for instance, you're all being on top of your saw. It's a little bit strange, and it results in an awl that's slightly oddly shaped, but at the same time, it's a tool you don't use that often, and having it on top of that saves some space, and it allows them to cram in a little bit more tool than I expected here, which is kind of nice. So that's good. The pliers on this guy are reasonably sized. I'll say that as well. On the little tiny guy on the Squirt, the pliers are just not quite adequate in terms of most everyday carry tasks. And the pliers on the Charge, although absolutely 100% good to go, are a little bit big in many situations. This is a nice intermediary sort of thing. This will do more work, absolutely, but this is, I think, going to do most of the jobs that most people have on a regular basis. So that's a nice thing. I'll also say the ergonomics on the pliers are actually pretty good. Yeah, you've got a couple of sharp edges here, especially right at the these little portions, but at the same time, using this isn't a terribly uncomfortable thing. I can bear down on this without a whole bunch of trouble, which is a problem that some other tools can definitely have. So that's good. The scissors on this guy are relatively decent, all told, which is actually high praise for multi-tool scissors. No, that's the knife. Here they are. So the reason I say that is not only are they fine, and they're actually of reasonable length. They can do decent amounts of cutting here, but they've also got this little spring loading tab here, which means that you're not having to try and kind of use your other finger to pop them back open. And because of the nature of this tab and the little groove it slots into here, it's not going to pop out of alignment like the little leaf springy sorts of scissors on other Leathermans can. So these scissors are actually a surprisingly nice little tool, and do a pretty good job of being scissors even though they're on a multi-tool. I appreciate that very much. Next thing is that compared to the Leatherman Wave, which is kind of my gold standard in a lot of ways, this guy is more compact. I already pointed this out, but it is really the case that this guy is smaller in the pocket on pretty much every dimension. It's about as... It looks to be about the same thickness, but nonetheless, it is definitely smaller, and it is absolutely 100% lighter than the Leatherman Wave, which is a beautiful thing, because the Wave, for all of its benefits, is relatively heavy. You're looking at about 8.6 ounces on the Wave, and 5.6 ounces on the little Juice here. So that is a big improvement, and especially if you're doing something like a backpacking, or you're just carrying your pack 20 miles a day for whatever reason, this is something that's, you're going to feel a little bit less than the Wave, and that's good. And then finally, the bottle opener thing. So I don't have a whole lot of experience with wine, but I have occasionally been asked to open a wine bottle, and I've always found the corkscrews that have the little assist thing to help you pop the cork out to be a beautiful thing, and especially because this guy's got the full range of motion. So, that seems like something you don't see very often on multi-tools. Very often your little Swiss Army knives will have the corkscrew itself, but you're stuck doing the pull sort of an affair, whereas this has the leverage, like something that's more designed to open bottles. So my impression is that that's a beautiful, beautiful thing for people who open a lot of wine. So there you go. That's what's on the good side here. It's got that nice, complete wine bottling opening thing. That's the technical term again. You can tell I finished sommelier school with flying Fs. Moving along here, it's lighter than the Wave. It's more compact than the Wave. It's got surprisingly good scissors, better than on the Wave, I think. The pliers are a good enough size. It's got some nested tools, which saves some space, and it's got a nice little complement of those tools. Let's talk about what's great here. On the great side, this is a very solid tool. Leatherman is very good at making these sorts of very dense, for lack of a better term, sorts of tools. I like that very much. This guy feels like you're a-okay. You can, really crank on it. This is not going to be something that injures itself. It doesn't have needless plastic to it. It doesn't, I don't see any real way for this to fail. And the fact that this is pinned means that it can't be disassembled, which makes me sad at some level, but, it's just, this is going to be a solid tool for many years. It's using the same construction as this little guy, the Squirt P4, which I have owned now probably... at least 16, 17 years, and used a great deal and have had zero trouble with. So I like the solidity of it. It is a nicely built, very solid sort of smaller multi-tool as opposed to some of the more crappily made ones out there. So that's what's great for me, is the solidity of this tool and the way that Leatherman does tend to build them right. So there you go. Let's talk about what's bad. Okay, so on the not-so-great side, first off, the knife blade. It's not serrated, which I appreciate very much, but the steel on this blade is 420HC steel. And, 420HC steel was a fine steel 15 years ago, but now we have so much better. And I know that Leatherman is able to use good steels in their knives. For instance, the blade on the Charge TTI here is S30V, which is a full-on great steel. It is a modern super steel sort of an affair, and the Skeletools are using 154 cm, which is a serious improvement as well. It bugs the crap out of me that multi-tool manufacturers are so behind the steel curve relative to a lot of your conventional, pocket knives and even other sorts of things that include cutting edges. I'm not a fan of the 420 here. They need to fix that up. Next thing, this guy, although it has this Phillips driver in the middle there, it is an integrated Phillips driver. Oh, come on. I gotta use something to get at this. It is an integrated Phillips driver rather than using Leatherman's removable bit set sort of an affair. The bit set is just a beautiful thing in that you can interchange these bits, you can flip it around to get different sizes. If you if you deal with a specific screw every day, you can put the right bit in there, and that way your multi-tool is kind of customized to the screw types that you're constantly fiddling with. This guy just gives you a lot less flexibility. It's better than no Phillips head at all, but I would much prefer if they'd had a socket for the Leatherman bit set sort of an affair. This also gives you support for the bit drivers and the interchangeable sets, which really turn it into a much more interesting tool. So the fact that it's lacking that makes me a little bit sad. Another thing that this tool is lacking all around, the ability to lock the tools. So for instance, the knife on this guy is completely non-locking. This is a slip joint knife, effectively. You can put your finger here and that kind of prevents the knife from closing, but at the end of the day, if something happens and the knife has a force applied back here, the knife is just going to close. As opposed to on this guy where there is actually a blade lock. And similarly, the interior tools have no locking either. Again, on the Wave, if you pop one of these tools out of here, it will automatically, oh, come on now. There we go. It'll automatically lock shut. It's got this little lever in the back here in order to release it. Whereas on this guy, any of those interior tools, which I'm not going to go after right now because, no, that's a pain in the neck, they don't lock. The only way that you can lock one of those tools out is by extending it and then closing the tool so that it literally cannot go back into its hole. That's sad, but whatever. Next thing, this guy has a saw on it, which seems a little bit out of place here. This is not necessarily the tool I would buy for the lumberjack in my life. This is not an outdoorsy survival sort of oriented tool. I feel like that's a very strange choice, to put a full-on saw blade in this tiny little multi-tool that's really designed to be an intermediate step. I don't get that at all. I would much have preferred to see a file, or maybe even a serrated knife blade. The saw to me just seems like, wait, what? Why did we put this here? Moving on. The blade on this guy is relatively small, and it's actually smaller than it could be. They may be trying to come in under some city's legal limit here, but if we take a look, the knife blade actually stops pretty abruptly within the... And so they could have gotten an extra, looks like half an inch, quarter inch out of this guy in a heartbeat, which seems a little bit strange. Certainly, a knife too much longer would have seemed a bit out of proportion, but I just don't necessarily understand why the blade is this tiny. Although, I mean, at some level... I don't know. It's still going to be a blade in the eyes of the TSA, so they're still going to steal it from you. So, something to keep in mind. Then, finally, on the bad side, the price on this guy seems a bit high. Because this guy runs $75, and that's a fair bit of money already, but considering that the Wave, which is superior in a bunch of ways, is only $15 more... I just don't know, and so this guy just feels very expensive to me relative to some of Leatherman's other offerings. So that's on the bad side. So on the bad side, like I said, it's pricey. The blade seems a little weirdly small. The saw is completely out of place here. None of the tools are willing to lock open for you. It doesn't support Leatherman's excellent bit set idea, and the knife steel is 420HC, which made a lot of sense in 2000, but not so much these days. Let's talk about the ugly. So on the ugly side, this tool is seriously nail nick dependent, which means that a lot of these tools are going to be a pain to get to. There are only 3 tools, as a matter of fact, that you can get to without using a nail nick sort of arrangement. The awl is one of them, the corkscrew and its little buddy here are the second, and then finally your pliers you can get to without a nail nick. Everything else is going to require you to dig your fingernail into something. If you're somebody like me who tends to keep his fingernails nice and short, this is going to be annoying as all get out. And it's more annoying than, for instance, on your Leatherman Wave at Charge, because here at least there's a much wider gap for you to get your finger into. On this guy, this gap is tiny, and I have small hands. But still, I have trouble getting my rudimentary little fingernail into there to grab at this. So I found myself needing a tool to open the tools on my tool. And that's a level of recursion I am not necessarily comfortable with. It's got kind of an exhibit feel to it, and I'm not a big fan of that. So the fact that this is super nail nick dependent is really annoying to me, and at least for me, is deeply ugly. Some people are not going to give a crap, but the combination of this thin little gap here with relatively crappy areas to grab onto means that more so than the Wave of the Charge, this annoyed the heck out of me and makes me regret my nail status, but not really that much. Really made me regret the tool of choice status. So that's what's ugly, is it's nail nick dependent, and if you hate that, you're going to hate this tool. Let's talk final conclusions here. Final conclusion is that in many ways, this little tool here, the Juice CS4, is 2/3 of a Leatherman wave. This is true in size, in lightness, and utility, frankly, pretty much every sense but the price. It's 4/5 of the price, which is a much bigger fraction. And that kind of leaves it in a weird, awkward position. If this were, if this were 2/3 of the price, I'd be much more interested in it. But as it is, it's a little bit strange, because this is a nice tool. I mean, absolutely. There's a whole lot of good here. They need to fix the nail nick issue like yesterday, but the thing is, it can handle a bunch of different tasks. And with this wine thing, it's a different target market than the Charge and the Wave, and so that's kind of nice. But for me, I see two main use cases for this tool. The first off would be for a survivalist sommelier, somebody who needs to pair MREs and captured forest creatures with French wines in some sort of a post-apocalyptic hellscape. This would be the perfect tool for them, because in addition to having a saw, they have themselves a beautiful little bottle and can opener. So that's a beautiful thing. The other case that's probably a little bit more common is people who want something that's a good intermediate size between, say, your Leatherman Squirt and your Leatherman Wave, because that's really the niche this is filling. It's in the middle right there. It's lighter in the pack, it's going to be a little bit smaller in the pocket, and frankly, it's still pretty capable. You get a lot more tool out of it than your little Squirt, but you get a lot less weight than your Wave or your Charge, for that matter. So, in general, if you're looking at the Squirt CS4, my recommendation is going to be that you do step up to the Wave here. I like the Wave a great deal, and for $15 and a few ounces more, you're getting a lot more tool. You're getting support for the Leatherman bit set, you're getting locking tools all around, slightly bigger pliers, ergonomics is slightly improved, the option for a pocket clip. With this guy, you have to use like a suspension clip or something along those lines. There is a major improvement if you jump up those $15. And, for me at least, because I can afford both the extra $15 and the extra couple ounces, it's not even a contest. I would carry the Wave over this any day of the week. But the thing is, if you want something in the middle, or you really do need that wine bottle sort of system, this may be a very good choice for you. You're going to pay a little bit of a price for it, but it is not a bad tool whatsoever. Just don't trim your nails. Anyways, so that's the Leatherman Juice CS4. I hope this can be Oh, juice like wine. I finally got that. Okay, moving on. Sorry, not a brilliant man. Hope this was interesting for you, that you found it useful, and that it left you juicy. That's no good. But mostly that you have yourself an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.